what I think is happening in the ReFi space is that we're envisioning this different world together. And I do think there's like a lot of appetite for it.
Welcome to The Regeneration Will Be Funded. This is a show about regenerative finance. We are exploring pathways to a life-affirming economy. I'm your host, Matthew Monahan. Today's guest is Tereza Bízková. She is a contributor across multiple projects in the ReFi space, including Funding the Commons, ReFi Medellín, crypto altruism, and of course, many will recognize she is the co-host of season 4 of the ReFi DAO podcast, featuring many excellent guests, some of whom have been on this show as well. So we have a lot of overlap. Thank you, Tereza, for being on the show.
Thank you, Matthew, for having me.
So yeah, I would love to hear a bit of your journey. How'd you get involved in this wacky world of ReFi? And you have your finger and hands in so many projects. So tell us more.
Yeah, so I think I got into Web3 like 3 years ago. I was working for a little PR agency based in Colombia, and we were working with different clients across like tech. So there was someone like from real estate tech, health tech, fintech, and all that. And we were starting having more and more blockchain clients. And at the time, I was like, wow, this is like a little niche monetary revolution of like a few gigs, somewhere. And was not very interested in it. Like what you could hear in mainstream media was obviously very degen, let's say. And I was like, actually, like, oh, I don't really want to take those clients, and don't make me do that. And then I started learning more. And I remember having a coffee with my friend, and he was like, wow, there is an NGO here in Medellin that's fundraising with NFTs. And I was like, wow, tell me more, So from having seen like maybe some of the like very common use cases that we see, in the media, to seeing something more like valuable and tangible to me was really great because I did my master's in something related to international development. And in that field, obviously, you hear about those famous cases like after the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. I think that was like one of the biggest fundraising campaigns in American Red Cross history. They fundraised like I think around $500 million. And I know there was a study like a few years after that where they found out that they were supposed to use this to build housing for I don't know 100,000 of people, and they built like 6 houses, right? So you hear about these stories of like very big gaps or like traditional like failures in international development, humanitarian aid, the impact sector. And you're always excited when you hear like, okay, we could do this differently and maybe get people excited about giving and all that. So that's kind of how I got in.
Nice. And so how does that express itself now? And can you maybe walk us through some of these projects that you're involved with?
Yeah, so I work as a communication strategist at Funding the Commons. Been with Funding the Commons since March and really enjoying that journey. Funding the Commons is basically trying to build bridges across 3 different audiences, I would say. There's the funders, as in people that are willing to fund public goods or looking for mechanisms to do that effectively. Then there is the builders that are building these solutions. And then there is researchers and academics that are finding different ways to make this even smoother. So yeah, we're trying to kind of I think create spaces and opportunities for these conversations around how we can, better allocate capital to where it matters to us as a society. So we just did our FTC Bangkok a few days ago, and it really felt like home, just with the people that we were able to gather, and also like build a bridge to the local community here in Thailand. Have some people come and share about the challenges here. So that was beautiful. I also started with a few people, ReFi Medellín, obviously a little community, a node of the ReFi DAO, and really enjoying that work as well. We're trying to educate on ReFi. We're trying to run events, develop some smaller impact activities as well. So that's, I think, where I really get to like learn about like blockchain in the real world and what it takes to, for example, onboard people to Web3. What are the challenges that they face? What can we do with the technology? And then I am also advising for crypto altruism, which is probably the platform that like really supercharged my learning journey in Web3 the most, because Drew, the host of the podcast, has been like, really like broadly capturing, I think, the Web3 for good space. And really getting a lot of cool projects on my radar. So I wanted to kind of contribute back and really enjoying that too.
Nice, beautiful. Well, given that you have such a broad view into the refi landscape, like what is the state of refi today? How are you thinking about it and experiencing it?
Yeah, so I think rather than seeing refi as a movement, or another category like DeFi versus
Hmm.
refi, I like to see refi as a lens, because I think for us humans, we are always like obviously like the products of our environment, for example. And if all the choices that you have on the daily are extractive or like super consumerist, that's what you're gonna choose because like it's very difficult to for you to like build that alternative, right? So what I think is happening in the refi space is that we're envisioning this different world together, and I
Mm.
do think there's like a lot of appetite for it. Even with like everyday consumers. I remember seeing a report by McKinsey that came out like a few years ago that was kind of looking at like luxury watches or even like regular like watches that people are purchasing and saying how a few years ago the main decision making point would be price.
Mm.
Now it's actually alignment with the brand and its philosophy.
Mm.
So I love seeing that, us humans are becoming more conscious about maybe the holistic process or the holistic relations in our world. Not just, for example, if we are, deciding, okay, let's start a project and build, I don't know, again, can be watches, thinking, okay, the only ones that are involved in this equation it's me that's selling the watch and you buying the watch. It's not like that, right? There
Mm.
is like, where is the material coming from and how is the supply chain structure and how is the environment being affected by it? So I think ReFi is a lens that allows us to see the whole of our processes and lives.
Yeah, nice. What given that you come from a communications like lens, like how are you thinking about that aspect of like how do we communicate refi? Are we trying to kind of build coalitions within the core development and research communities right now? Do you feel like the goal should be to bring more of a mainstream audience into this
Mm.
space? And yeah, maybe any comments you have about kind of your strategy or lens into the communications?
Yeah, I think when I say that I see ReFi as a lens, what I want to achieve with that is that it becomes like an inclusive conversation, right? Because
Mm.
sometimes I feel that in the ReFi space, we go like, "Oh, you're not offsetting like all your carbon input outputs, so does it mean that you're not ReFi? So I'm not going to talk to you."
Mm.
And I think that's a shame because I think generally in life, in nature, we see that beauty and strength comes from diversity. And I think that the best thing you can do for your product, be it a ReFi product or a DeFi product, anything, is to invite people to contribute and share their feedback. So I think that the ReFi space should do more of that. For
Mm.
example, the other day I heard someone say, "Oh, let's launch a ReFi token," and I may not love the idea, but even then I go, okay, yeah, but maybe you should go to the people at the next booth here at Devcon that have actually done it because there is like a decentralized finance booth as well.
Mm.
So yeah, I do wanna see more of these interactions because I think yeah, diversity in this sense is beautiful, and that's why I love comms as well because when you're sharing about your projects, basically you're creating a constant feedback loop with your audience, right? Because you're allowing people to react to your work that you're constantly sharing, and I think it's important if you want to get far.
Mm. Nice. Other like areas that you think refi lens space crypto community could improve on?
For sure. I think the single biggest thing that I see is the gap between the big vision and the real world implementation.
Mm.
And I do want to like make it my personal mission as well to, maybe connect those two more because I love seeing, like very innovative projects and builders getting excited about, okay, we can do this for the community, and build a IoT structure and to install the sensors and stuff. But then have they even talked to the community about this?
Mm.
Have they seen if it's possible to bring this technology there? So I think that's something that needs to happen overall. I've just spent like a few weeks with our residents at the Funding the Commons residency, and they have like very like transformative visions for what they want to do, from decentralized identity to privacy solutions, governance mechanisms. And it's really beautiful to see those ideas. But what I'm hoping happens next is that they actually take it to the real world or talk to potential users and see how they can improve it. Because if not, we always end up just like building for ourselves. And that's not how things actually get implemented. So I'm hoping to see more of that.
Nice. So presumably that's part of the driving motivation for ReFi Medellín. What are you learning about kind of like trying to bring that to a local place?
Yeah, so ReFi Medellín is very, very close to my heart. And we actually recently had a moment that I think really showed us, okay, we're on the right track with what we're doing. Because I could tell you now that, oh, we're gonna, like plant this quantity of trees or gonna start this amazing project. But at the end of the day, we're a small team. We have limited funding. And I would rather, like be very realistic about our impact and make sure that whatever we're doing, as limited as it is, we're doing right. So we did a little panel in Medellin about like 6 weeks ago about regenerative agriculture and invited three organizations to share about their work. So we did like a little panel, and I think we had like 40, 50 people there. And it was beautiful because after the panel, we had people, there were climate activists that joined. There was someone from the government locally. There were people from Web3 there. And I think the fact that we saw these people talk in the same room, I see it as a personal success. Not everything that we do has to be like super Web3, obviously. We are we
Right.
have like different tracks for our activities. But I think generally it's been great to kind of like start experimenting with things on the local level, right? Because there's so many lessons that come from that. So, for example, we did a lot of onboarding activities and seeing, okay, well, maybe we can get people to start a wallet, but how can we make sure that they're using it after, right? So, like seeing those challenges. Or, for example, we launched a lending protocol in our community and kind of thinking about, okay, who has access to this, to give like microloans, maybe up to $500, because $500 in Colombia can change somebody's life. So we actually created a structure where we provide these loans to our community members that have proven themselves by maybe attending some past events. And then they basically have to get vouched by some members of the team as well. And then the next part kind of happens on chain. So yeah, we're kind of experimenting with different things, trying to, see what we can implement. Sometimes it's little things like holding glow dollars in our treasury. Glow dollar, by the way, little shilling here. It's one of my favorite projects, even though I'm not associated with them in any kind of business relationship. I just really love the fact that we can hold currency and support impact by that as well. So little experiments that we're running, but I think we're learning a lot and building the community there.
And so for those who aren't familiar, Glow Dollar is a stable coin, and like other stable coins, it's one-to-one backed with dollars. So you put US dollars into the bank account of Glow, and they give you USD GLO, which represents the dollars. But unlike other stablecoin projects, rather than pocketing the yield from the base fiat currency, they're using that yield to fund, I guess, altruistic, regenerative, climate-related projects. And so it's kind of a nonprofit twist on the stablecoin space, but it just means that anyone holding Glow is essentially, helping support that yield to going towards regenerative projects.
Exactly.
Nice. So what's the, like, how do you fund this local node within ReFi DAO? And maybe a second question part of that is like, what's the vision of, are there particular aims that you have for these ReFi DAO nodes to, is it the onboarding function, or is it just kind of activating local interest in Web3? Or yeah, help me understand, I guess, the aims.
Yeah, so first, to answer your funding question, we are public goods funded, which means that we are basically fundraising, and we've been doing it mostly through Gitcoin, Givet. We also received money from Optimism Retro PGF last year. So that's how we get funded, like doing these continuous campaigns. And when it comes to our aims, I think our biggest goal is really to be the bridge, or like the starter of the conversation and connecting different organizations, stakeholders in Colombia. because actually ReFi Medellín, started as the original node in Colombia, but now there is also ReFi Bogota, ReFi Cartagena. There's ReFi Amazonas starting now, so we are getting like more traction in the country. So we also started ReFi Colombia to maybe help coordinate some of these joint efforts and maybe take over some activities that are not like purely local. Because for example, in ReFi Medellín, we started with online English classes. And well, now ReFi Colombia took over so that we can maybe attract like the broader audience for it. But I think for me, what I would still see, as the long term goal as well, apart from building this connection, is to like really conduct like real world experiments of blockchain for good. And something that we discussed originally, and there was the vision of the nodes, and I'm not sure if it's still there, like globally coordinated, but to acquire land and protect it. And I would love for us to do it in the future. And we were even like brainstorming this on the team level, like thinking, okay, maybe a small lot of land that we can protect, and maybe build like a little tiny house there, a little cabin that we could then maybe like rent to the members of the community to make sure like that there is some kind of model around it for it to get sustained, and like to educate people like, hey, you're coming to this place, this is how you can protect it, this is how we like take care of it, and create like a little project around that.
Nice. So in terms of the crypto altruism and the ReFi DAO podcast, I guess zooming out to more of the macro view, like what are some of the lessons you're learning, the ideas you're encountering that get you really excited, or curious what themes are most alive for you?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, the most beautiful thing about the podcast for me has been that we have had economists, ecologists, eco weavers, technologists on the podcast already, and they're all saying the same thing. And I think this is the perfect validation for the ReFi space and the importance of the work that everyone's doing, because I think sometimes I've seen in the past that the ReFi narrative has been a little fractured. But the fact that people are again, coming in and using the exact same like arguments and showing the same urgency, I think has like really like been almost like eye opening to like really see, okay, there's no way back, right? Like these things need to happen, and this is why they need to happen. So that has been like my biggest, I think, learning. And I think it's really great to like talk to people that are working in impact investing and like bringing technology together with all this. And I think I've also been able to shape my personal narrative based on these conversations. And one of my favorite episodes, if I can have favorites, has been with Azim Khan. He is the founder of Morph, and also worked at Gitcoin as, I think, has head of partnerships, and he's the one that negotiated the famous shell deal with Gitcoin, which has been or was very, very controversial at its time with the ReFi community. But I think I love seeing people that are bringing like a very sober view to this space, because after some time in the ReFi space, I think we've become almost like too idealistic. And it's great to have that vision, but also we need to always be moving the needle, right? To get somewhere. So I love seeing people that are, maybe taking different approaches or building bridges where they have not been built yet, even though, sometimes it means that, okay, well, maybe we have to do things a little differently than we envisioned to keep moving forward. And I think that's something that I really like to see, because we also had Michel Bouwens at Fun in the Comments, and he said something that I thought was like very, very accurate. He said, I go to these events, to crypto events, for example, years and years, and I always hear people like suggest like the same things. And, they are like in an isolated space, and they are, okay, I came up with a new mechanism without actually thinking about, okay, maybe this mechanism has already been built in the impact space, or, okay, maybe I can start a new, I don't know, system to fund farmers without actually thinking about all the work that has been done around microloans. So I love, again, like seeing that like people are collaborating and thinking that maybe if you, Matthew, and I now say, okay, we can come up here, over this table with an idea about how to fund something new or how to create a revolutionary mechanism, to improve humanitarian aid. I think it would be extremely arrogant for us to think that no one has thought of this before, and that we don't have a library of knowledge that we can borrow from, or that we should not confront our ideas with the ideas and, like academic research that has already been done on that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one thing I've really appreciated about how you and Maya have guided season 4 of the podcast, seeing this breadth of voices that aren't necessarily from the Web3 space only, because I feel like this term regenerative finance, I mean, you know, and you had John Fullerton on the show who coined the term regenerative economics, regenerative capitalism, and we're all kind of like, embracing this word regenerative. But I think that to define ReFi as just like carbon credits on chain would be such a missed opportunity for the field, because exactly like you said, there's a long history of people who've been working on ideas around ecological economics, around donut economics, around well-being economies, around how do we restore the commons, and these are all aspects of pointing to a new economic paradigm. John Fullerton emphasizes that this is a paradigm shift. So, uh, how do we make sure that we're widening the aperture and the Overton window of what we're calling ReFi and regenerative finance to include all of these different threads and to learn from the many ideas and wisdom holders that came before us, or who are also still active, but maybe just not coming from a crypto, blockchain lens. And, we have this really incredible set of tools now where we can actually run real world experiments and to democratize monetary policy design and to program our values into our money and to, see how these ideas can take shape in new forms that weren't, our ancestors didn't have that opportunity necessarily. So yeah, curious what you think of all that.
Yeah, I think that's our role as storytellers as well. And you've been doing great work in this for sure. Is that we can build bridges to these ideas, and bring them again, like to the spotlight. I had a little moment a few days ago that, like really blew my mind because in Brussels in July, I was part of a team hacking in the Eve Global Hackathon. And we were trying to create basically a collaborative finance system on the community level where you would contribute every month to a pool of funds that would then be distributed to one person only, right? That they could do something more significant with that capital. And we were running into so many roadblocks about how to make it happen. What would be the model? What to do if somebody is not able to maybe contribute 1 month? And at the end of the day, we were not able to solve it. So we kind of pivoted a little bit. And then here I was talking to Anke and Anna from Stellar Development Foundation. And they were just like telling me about some things that have been built on Stellar. And they mentioned there is a community in Haiti doing exactly that. So I was like, wow, but if I didn't have this conversation with you, I would never know. So I think it would be really great if we, as a community also thought about how can we bring, the most impactful like real world use cases together, and how can we better learn. And if you need to be connected with this person, how can you do it? Or maybe if you're building something, what are the things that you should be thinking about? Because it's extremely important to do that.
So I guess that there were kind of two different aspects of what I was hearing about ensuring that the space is learning from what's been happening in the rest of the world, of course. But then there was another thing you were kind of pointing to, which was like pragmatism versus idealism. And you brought up the Shell example for those who aren't familiar. I wasn't close to it, but essentially, as I understand it, Shell offered to put capital into the matching pool of some of the Gitcoin rounds, or one of the Gitcoin rounds. And then there was a bit of a contentious debate about whether it made sense to accept those funds, given maybe Shell didn't represent the ethos of the community. And I think some people did accept them and some people didn't. And you can provide more detail. I wasn't really involved in it, but what's your take on where we're at in terms of the pragmatism versus idealism debate?
Yeah, I think that there is no right or wrong answer here.
Mm.
And actually, I don't even know how I feel about it myself, but I do love that someone's doing that and we can have conversations around it. And I think one thing that comes to mind, and I know I've mentioned it to you before, is that there are apparently like 3 different ways that you can change the system. And props to Marcus Aurelius from KlimaDAO who talked to me about this. Is one, like being inside the organization and trying to change it from the inside. than being outside, maybe like outside of the building, you imagining and saying, hey, this is what you guys need to change, and then being completely outside of the system and building something extremely different. So I think that there is space for all of us, like playing these different roles, but ultimately having the same goal.
Yeah. Yeah, we often come also back to the 3 horizons framework. Have you come across this? It's like we're currently in the existing paradigm, horizon 1. We might be pointing out to the distance of like what we want the world to look like in horizon 3. And then there's often this kind of intermediate horizon of like the transition space. And it's helpful in terms of understanding where for a given tool, a given approach, a given organization's incentive, whatever, like maybe just being able to be explicit about, well, yeah, this isn't necessarily horizon 3. This is more like a horizon 2, but 2 gets to 3, right? And I think that's important as well because I've been playing with this like idea of how do we make crypto compostable? Where like I want to make sure that when we're building these immutable systems that are backed with all of this, economic incentives, that we don't recreate these runaway mega corporations. Right now, if you have the CEO of a big pharmaceutical or petrochemical or industrial food system company suddenly become enlightened and decide to maybe not externalize costs onto the environment, but at the expense of profit, like they get booted, right? Like the system of incentives of the shareholders and the rules of the capitalism as it stands means that that person doesn't necessarily have as much agency. And I'm overgeneralizing here, but like that patterning could emerge in crypto where we build these kind of runaway systems, like we're too successful. And so the question is like part of regeneration is degeneration, right? Like how do we make sure that these things can also be composted back into the soil for the next projects? And I think forking and open source are really critical ingredients to that because, a community can say, we don't like how this is going, we're going to fork the code. But I do think the crypto space would benefit from a little bit more discussion about how do things die gracefully, how do things recompose, decompose, so that we don't get caught into this like infinite growth paradigm.
This is a really interesting topic of discussion, even when it comes to Web3 grants.
Mm,
And it's something that I've been thinking about, like when it comes to like ReFi Medellín as well, right? Because again, we are like grant funded, but to what point should that be a thing? And are we or are other projects maybe taking these funds instead of someone that deserves them more and maybe are just
mm,
getting started? And I do want to be critical like this about our projects as well. I'm not saying that like we are the most impactful project in the world. If there is someone that can have more impact, then they should have the capital, right?
mm,
And I don't know if it's making us like lazy as a space as well, but I see, like a lot of campaigns, and I see that as a comms person a lot, that a lot of campaigns get activated only around, like the GG22 season coming up. We are back and you can
mm.
support us again. So relying on that, okay, I know that I'm going to have another financial injection in 3 months. Um, like it was interesting, like balance and something to think about. I don't have the
Mm,
answers of, how we should be like going about this. Obviously, like impact measurement and evaluation is one thing that we need to be better at, but
mm.
it is something interesting to think about.
Yeah, totally. Well, we've had a number of conversations here at Devcon about impact measurement, assessment. We had Artem from Octant. Um, we had this morning Lao Namu from Metrics Garden. We spoke with Mahesh from Karma Gap. And yeah, it does feel like the public goods funding grant programs are here to stay at some fundamental level. Like I was maybe not so sure of that before DevCon, but now like I realize we're only speaking to a small portion of all the people, and it feels like there's a lot of grants programs and a lot of experimentation continuing to evolve. And yeah, what do you make of all of the different types of community, quadratic, retroactive, these different funding rounds? Thoughts on how we can keep doing it better?
Yeah, I love seeing that this is happening because, again, like with my background and, like seeing the impact space and also things like open source software not being properly rewarded, I think is like extremely like damaging to the ecosystem, because I think a lot of today's innovations and a lot of like our progress as a society actually is based on public goods and public goods innovation. So I love seeing people becoming curious about better ways to fund public goods. Are those systems perfect? Probably not, but I do appreciate those experiments. There's always a lot of discussions, and Artem probably told you about this. After each epoch, they're kind of, okay, this is the community feedback. This is what we can try now. They just incorporated quadratic funding in the latest round or the latest epoch. You see that with optimism, retro PGF as well. Like, okay, this is what the community thought about. This is how we're shifting it. So I do think that this is extremely important innovation, and I love that there is an open conversation about it. And there are already some experiments that I have a lot of admiration for as well, like drips specifically for open source software, because I got to speak with them in San Francisco this year. And I just love the way you can kind of set up your dependencies, your software dependencies, whatever they might be. If you're a project, okay, I'm relying on these repository of code, and who are the people that have created them in the first place, and how can I maybe split some of my profits and making sure that they actually drip to the end of my tech stack, I think is really beautiful. And I think, just like being here and hearing about Protocol Guild, and the 1% pledge of, okay, maybe the organizations like layer 2 protocols that are heavily dependent on this infrastructure in the first place could, donate 1% of their profits to Protocol Guild and help fund Ethereum core development. I think it's really great that these conversations are happening, because, like if we want to, again, like advance, and if we want to keep building, we are never doing it, from scratch. Even whether that's people and ideologies and ideas and hardware, all of it, right? So it's good to think about, okay, if I want to, power these people up and these contributors, how can I do that in my own work and give back and, help others experiment and grow further? I think is beautiful to see this space.
Yeah, totally. What are your reflections from here at Devcon? I'm curious what else you've been encountering, and you also helped put on the Funding the Commons event, which I was at and really enjoyed. Yeah, curious what's been alive for you.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, the different teams, I like to get very curious and geeky. And just the fact that, like you have three rooms next to each other, and in one you hear people talking about local currencies. The next one is, I don't know, a ZK workshop. And the third one is the cypherpunk email analysis. I think is really cool. So I've been kind of like, I always enjoy dipping my toes in something very new. So been kind of learning a lot about governance, about decentralized identity. That actually specifically because having done the residency in Chiang Mai, obviously, you cannot help but like be curious about, for example, the situation of Burmese refugees and how can blockchain solutions help with that. And we have actually done a little pilot around that as well, Funding the Commons, and kind of seeing the complexities. Sometimes I think we are a little out of touch with what it takes to build in the real world and for the real world. And I saw a lot of criticism on Twitter around it too, and like because people are saying, okay, that 97 talks about infrastructure, 3 about apps. Maybe not the exact number, but people are kind of making a point that you have all these booths for like layer 2s, and it's great to see that obviously they have all different value propositions. But okay, let's talk about the apps as well. I want to learn about the best wallet. I want to learn about this decentralized identity solution. I want to learn about this bridging solution and all that. So I do want to see more of that as well, because ultimately that's how we get to the next billion, as they say, right?
Any spicy takes that I can manage to coax you to share about either the ReFi space or crypto overall?
I think coming back to what I've already shared, I would say one thing: builders know nothing. No, I'm kidding. But that's why if you have this like perception yourself, I think that's the only way you can get far. Because if you think that you know nothing, then you go and ask people, and I think that's how you build a good product.
Yeah.
I have really enjoyed running the Funding the Commons hackathon that we did recently as well. And I do see, like different perspectives really can bring different ways we can think about things. And I do think that builders still have this, initial really, really good ideas. So I do want to connect with everyone or anyone that's like looking to maybe get some criticism or feedback, or is looking maybe to, improve their comms. So if anyone needs any help with that, I would encourage them to reach out to me because I love seeing innovation, and hopefully, there's going to be more ecosystems that support this kind of loop, right? Because for
Mm,
example, after you finish a hackathon, you have this great idea, but how do you bring it to the real world then? And I
right.
think that's actually where the ecosystem can do even more work, because again, so much great innovation, but usually, and I have a lot of friends that are hackers and builders, usually the innovation dies right after the hackathon, right? Because
Hmm.
you have like all this support during the hackathon and the mentors, and this is what you can do. And then maybe you win a prize, and okay, wow, like I see on the horizon like the product I could build, but all the work that it takes, and I have maybe some builders don't actually have business experience, and where could they find someone that does, or what is the next step, and how to get legally
Hmm.
incorporated and all that. Like just hearing that, like I wouldn't do it myself, right?
Yep.
Like so creating like different structures, and actually again like shout out to the Stellar team because they told me about all the whole kind of loop that they have for the builders, and I see it in all other ecosystems as well. But yeah, Octan has their accelerator and other projects too. So if we can like collectively support builders that really want to bring these projects to the real world,
Yep.
yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah, totally. It feels like the hackathons, the previous like maybe Web 2 version of hackathons were really well designed for like, a night of pizzas, everyone get together and do some prototyping, accelerators being more about like how do we bring a project to life? How do we really get it off the ground, give you support and all these different facets, maybe not just the technology, but the legal and the finance and so forth. And it feels like crypto is like experimenting with that transition also in these residencies,
Mm.
which I think is, yeah, something that I didn't experience as much in the Web 2 era. But it seems like it's really picking up because we've gone from crypto nomadic conferencey
Mhm.
culture to like, well, actually, why don't we all hang out here for a bit longer? We're all going to Thailand for Devcon. Like, why don't we stay for a month and,
Mm.
actually spend some time together? Yeah. How are you experiencing this kind of phenomenon of edge cities and residencies and maybe the pros and cons of what you're seeing in those fields?
It's an interesting debate because even when we went to, for example, Vitalik's talk at Chiang Mai and people were asking him the exact question, he was like, well, it's difficult still to see, the value proposition of this. So I
Mm,
think everyone's kind of realizing that we're like kind of trying to figure things out. And to some extent, it is probably an excuse to just come hang out. But what people seem to be leaning towards is seeing this space as like an open university,
mm,
where everyone can contribute to what they know about, they can learn, they can share. And like personally for me, I've really enjoyed, yeah, like being able to actually have the conversations that actually like last longer than, maybe a talk over a coffee, because then you
totally.
can actually, yeah, like fine tune your idea and hear from different people what they think about it. And I saw those moments at the Fun in the Commons residency for sure. Like we had some visitors as well, and people are talking about impact evaluation, and they're writing on the pizza box like at 2 a.m. or something like that. So it's great to see that. I'm curious to see what comes out of it as well. I think there's a lot of like implications that we should think about as well. For example, okay, our impact on the local community, and are we making sure that they are involved? And you know, uh, we should not come there and say, okay, this is how we're gonna solve your problems either, right? Like this is where you can do
Hmm.
more harm than good. So if we are doing that, what is the angle? How can we get the local community involved? What is something that they would like to see? What is the formats that they like, right? Because yeah, like it's like my nightmare, like just like going somewhere and okay, this is what we're gonna do and this is how you're gonna do it, and you can participate, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And
Hmm.
we're just gonna stay here for a month and consume and like enjoy our time in Thailand without actually thinking
Hmm.
about it consciously. And it would be like hypocritical to say that, oh, I'm like perfect, like I'm super conscious. Like obviously not. But I think it's good to have these conversations, and I think we've like really thought about this and finding the comments again. There's so many things that we can improve, but at least to think, okay, what are some of the local issues, and can we invite people to talk about it, and maybe connect with builders and see how it can maybe inform some of these like building decisions.
Hmm.
So I think that's something that will need to happen for sure, because I was just at the Zuzalu event a few days ago, and there were so many pop-up cities. I was like, wow, everyone is doing a pop-up city now. And what is going to come out of this? Like what's the concept? I hope it's again not just like a fancy retreat, but like a really tangible building space. But I think time will tell. There's going to be more of these experiments happening next year, and if in the comments, we're already looking at which spaces and which kind of, I think, teams we want to be engaged with, and how we can bring the public goods conversation there, and make it a little more balanced as well. So looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Yeah. I saw a meme. I can't remember it exactly, but it was like, everyone that has more than 4 people in a room now, I'm a pop-up city. Yeah, it's like we have new language for something that's, bringing people together in different locations. I think it's good because, we have to remember that since COVID, especially, all organizations, digital or not, are struggling with this tension between work in the office and work remotely, and how do you design coordination in this new era? And Web3 is just happening at this particular point in time and has a particularly globally distributed community, which is beneficial. But then it also, of course, benefits from people getting together in person and meeting one another and forming relationships. And so how do we do that and not just spend 3 days in a city and then everyone fly back? Like, how do we... I think one thing that also will come out of it, I haven't heard as much discussion yet, is just that's different when you have children. It's different for families, and, crypto's pretty young still. But, you start to also need to think about how do you construct a teams and workforces that are inclusive for people who can't get on a plane. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think it, to some extent, also fits into young people's need, maybe to seek the experiences that they're not able to have in the traditional world. They say that home ownership now for millennials is basically like out of reach completely.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, makes people explore these different dynamics more, right?
Totally.
Like co-living and all that. So I think that it's just like a natural consequence of our world today and what people are maybe seeking as well. I think it's a universal experience in this world to feel lonely sometimes. And I think a sense of community is something that everyone seeks. So I do see, different value propositions that these pop-up cities can have for sure. But again, I hope we do it consciously and we ask each other like difficult questions about this as well, so that again doesn't become just a really cool club for a select few that come to different places around the world to hang out. But yeah, I do see really beautiful connections being made here. I do see great projects getting started. Again, at the residency, actually some of the residents submitted their projects to the hackathon later as well. And from a new reward system for impact evaluators to actually some experiments around refugee identity and financial disbursement through that. I think there's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah. Any other like key priorities for 2025 or things that are on top for you?
Yeah, I think looking for ways to empower people building cool things and making sure, that I'm asking them the right questions, because I do see really cool projects in the ReFi space and beyond that I think could be very successful. So I think it's also our responsibility as a space to support one another and, give the platforms that we have to one another if we're, believing in the cause.
Awesome. Tereza, thanks so much for your time, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right. So to learn more about the projects that Tereza is contributing to and that we've discussed on this episode, just check out the show notes. And for more discussions from here at Devcon, just go to maearth.com. Thanks for watching.